Story 1. My ex took a long time to tell me that she was adopted. She revealed it during a casual conversation a few months into our relationship, acting as if it was a terrible secret. I honestly could not have cared less. When I asked her about it later, she said some people can be judgmental about adoption. I wondered why that was the case. Story 2. I don't know if it's still considered a red flag, but the lack of social media is a concern. Before I met my wife, I received many strange responses for not wanting to be on any platforms. Story 3. People often express negative feelings about their parents. My mother struggles with alcoholism and has a difficult personality. If I ever have children, I would not leave her alone with them. I feel free to discuss my parents in any way I choose. Story 4. Being over 40 with a few serious relationships can provide valuable life experience. Two things you cannot control are life and other people. The relevant question is, what did you learn? The answer is what truly matters. Story 5. Politicians changing their stances can be toxic depending on their motivations. It also poses a problem when an inflexible ideologue holds a position of power. Story 6. I once met a woman who was a virgin at 30. She was pretty cool, and I never thought any less of her. I imagine some people assumed she was religious or something. It sounded like she always moved around with her family. People have different paths in life. Story 7. Not giving eye contact can sometimes be a red flag, a sign of deception, but often it means someone is shy, introverted, or too sensitive to nonverbal cues. Some people have trouble articulating their thoughts while gazing into faces and may lose their concentration, which is not uncommon for those with childhood trauma or hypervigilance. I am more wary of individuals who maintain eye contact for too long. Story 8. Never married. No children. Sometimes life works that way. It doesn't mean something is wrong with them. Story 9. I have seen some women say that a man having a poor relationship with his mother is a red flag. I believe that really depends on the mother, and a man who sets boundaries with or cuts off an abusive or otherwise toxic mother is likely to be much healthier emotionally than one who continues that relationship. I have a very manipulative and unstable mother, and my life has greatly improved since cutting off contact. Story 10. Not sharing your location is a matter of privacy. Everyone is entitled to that level of privacy, and it is unusual for someone to want to know their partner's location constantly. Story 11. No social media. I've been told I'm a red flag because I deleted all my social media accounts except Reddit, of course. I've never been into Instagram, Snapchat is for children, and Facebook is just as awful as ever. I keep to myself and I like it that way. Yet, somehow I'm a red flag or I'm hiding something. Story 12. Having a small group of new friends is often seen as a warning sign. I have been told that my lack of a lifelong friend and my small friend group, where most friends are relatively new, 5 to 10 years, is concerning. I transformed my life when I learned I was going to be a father. I had to reflect on whether I would want my daughter to be around someone like me full-time. The answer was no. My friend group consisted of the party crowd since high school. I stopped partying, drinking, and using recreational drugs, distancing myself from that lifestyle. I have also been told that being sober, meaning I do not drink alcohol, even though I can be around it, is boring and considered another red flag. I have completely improved my life. My vices have now become coffee or zero-calorie soda. My new group of friends consists of wonderful individuals whom I consider brothers. I fail to see how this is a red flag. Story 13. Being confrontal. When approached the right way, someone who doesn't avoid having the difficult conversations in a relationship contributes more than someone who avoids them and prefers to move forward as though nothing is wrong. Story 14. When they're quiet and not fond of sharing everything, I'm a quiet guy, but not in a shy way. I say what needs to be said and nothing more. Many people think that makes me antisocial or negative, but in reality, I love people and have very good relationships with my friends. My friends understand this, and they know I won't often share what I'm thinking or feeling in a given moment, but I'll still vent if I need to. An open book is good, but some of the best books are short and to the point. Story 15. If you have no contact with your family or if you have a mental health condition, it can be challenging. However, I have a strong relationship with my family and have never been diagnosed with a mental health condition. I find it rude when people assume that these two situations are red flags. Story 16. Having friends of a different gender can be enriching. I have always had many male friends. If you can't trust someone with their friends, then what is the point? Story 17. Being a virgin in your late 20s or older. I was genuinely surprised when I learned that this was considered a red flag for others. Story 18. A slow replier may not need or want to be in constant contact and prefers to focus on their own activities in their own time. It can be a red flag if someone does not have a life outside of their relationship. Having breathing room and time to reflect is important, as absence can make the heart grow fonder, which is a positive aspect of relationships. Story 19. Being on friendly terms with exes is generally a good sign. It indicates that they have handled their breakups maturely. Story 20. Harmless nervous tics, like fidgeting or pacing, or not making eye contact during conversation are common traits of both attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and autism, which I experience. I never understood why people minded these behaviors so much. Unless the fidgeting is loud or destructive, I certainly don't mind if someone else engages in these actions. Story 21. It has always seemed strange to me that some straight women feel uncomfortable with their boyfriends having female friends. Don't you want to be with someone who respects women as individuals? Story 22. Insecurity can be a red flag, but people often avoid addressing the root causes for these insecurities due to the language we use and how frequently it is employed as a put-down. Very few individuals are completely confident and capable all the time, and almost everyone has doubts at certain points in their relationships. Many people justify treating a partner poorly or ridiculing someone simply for being perceived as insecure. If they aren't acting on that insecurity in a negative or antisocial way, why should we regard it as a terrible trait? Story 23. I've heard that people tend to avoid those who are overly friendly, not in a romantic sense. They believe such individuals may be trying to entice, coerce, or deceive them for personal gain. I consider myself a nice person and strive to be friendly to everyone. It's important to not take things at face value and to keep an open mind, as I have no idea what others go through in life. I primarily smile and maintain a positive attitude to prevent others from suffering as I once did. I do not want money, favors, or free gifts. I simply want to see others smile too. Is that a crime? Story 24. They still live with their parents. If rent is $2,000 and mom makes biryani, that is not a red flag. That is financial wisdom. Story 25. He admires other girls' beauty as well, not in a strange way. I know there are women who are more attractive or have better bodies than I do, and I admire them too. So why would it be wrong if he does as well? Story 26. I heard many people view it as a red flag when a woman is taller than a man in heterosexual couples, and that is just foolish. Story 27. When someone doesn't have many friends, I'm an introvert with about 3 close friends, and that's perfect for me. Quality over quantity, you know? Not everyone needs or wants a large social circle to be happy and healthy. Story 28. There is an anti-coercive control advertisement campaign currently taking place in Australia. In one part of the ad, a man expresses concern for his female partner when she goes out for the night. I think it is reasonable to share such feelings with your partner, especially if they are going to a risky club or have not arranged for a way to get home at the end of the night. However, the ad suggests that this behavior is controlling. While I understand this perspective, I also believe it is human nature to care for someone you love. I see no difference between this situation and parents worrying about their daughter going clubbing for the first time when she turns 18 or 21. Story 29. Men who are virgins or who have not had much luck with dating as they get older may struggle with confidence. Additionally, shyness and mental health issues can also play a significant role. Story 30. Someone you are dating not texting you back for a single day can be frustrating. People often act like there are always negative intentions behind it. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and even without it, I think it is unreasonable for someone to feel entitled to demand every moment of someone else's time when they are not working. I long for the days when being simply unavailable was acceptable if I was not at home to answer the phone or the door. We can catch up when we see each other in person on our date. Please do not text me every day expecting an immediate response. That will not work. Story 31. Admitting that she was once raped is truly sad. It's unfortunate that this girl believed this would be a warning sign for a future partner and tried to suppress it for so long. Of course, it isn't a warning sign. You don't need to share your experiences if you don't want to, but you shouldn't feel like it's a shameful secret. Story 32. Being in no contact with one or both parents can indicate a challenging relationship. Abusive parents do exist, and I often see this situation listed as a red flag. Story 33. Certain hobbies can be seen as red flags. This may be a controversial opinion, but I believe being passionate about something is a positive trait. However, it becomes an issue when someone prioritizes their hobby to the detriment of their personal life. I notice many people label activities like playing video games or horseback riding as red flags. It is important to remember that normal individuals with hobbies do exist, and they do not make those interests their entire identity. Story 34. Being too nice? Since when is kindness a character flaw? My boyfriend is the sweetest person I know and treats everyone with respect. That's not manipulation. That's just being a decent human being. Story 35. Having no friends can be misleading. When someone you have just met claims they have no friends, it is easy to make assumptions based on limited information. For instance, you might think they lack hobbies or have always been friendless. However, there could be numerous reasons behind their situation. They may not have friends in their current area because they live far from their previous social circles. They might be too busy with work, school, family, or personal interests to meet new people at the moment. It's also possible that they have an active online community but haven't established in-person connections, leading to the perception that they have no friends. Additionally, personal losses can affect social relationships. If someone is grieving, their friends may distance themselves to avoid reminders of loss. Friend groups can also experience conflicts for various reasons. Before jumping to conclusions, take the time to learn more about the person's situation. Story 36. Being assertive. Honestly, half the time people say this, they are not talking about someone who is genuinely assertive, but rather someone who knows what they want. I would much rather be with someone who knows what they want and communicates it clearly than someone who is indecisive and just goes along with my preferences. Story 37. I do not want people to go through my phone or devices. In many cases, this could be related to infidelity, but for me, it is linked to trauma from others invading my privacy and using what they found to attack me. I do not appreciate people going through my belongings, as it triggers a panic response. Story 38. Women who complain about poor service are often dismissed as entitled individuals. While some may indeed be bothersome, many are disregarded for valid complaints simply due to their gender, age, or status as customers. It is often easier to criticize than to provide good service. Story 39. Disliking dogs often draws a lot of strange looks from others. It's not that I hate animals. In fact, I love them. I could talk about the frogmouth for hours, for example. However, dogs can be overwhelming in terms of sensory input, and they can harm beach ecosystems that I deeply care about. Additionally, I cannot support the cruel breeding practices that result in some dogs being unable to breathe properly. Story 40. It is common for people to refer to any slightly inconvenient or troubling aspect of their personality as a red flag. Red flags include violent anger, chronic cheating, secret families, addictions, codependency, and habitual lying. Red flags do not include getting your nails done every week, having student loan debt, or owning too many cats. Story 41. All their exes being described as crazy or narcissistic is not inherently a red flag. In my experience, kind and empathetic individuals often become targets of those with abusive personalities. Their goodness is exploited to manipulate and control them. They are the common factor, but not necessarily the ones projecting. Story 42. I'm glad to know right away if there's something you don't like. I don't want to continue if it's a deal breaker, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable if it's just average for me. Calling it a red flag causes people to avoid discussing what they truly feel, and that is a red flag. Please be genuine or this won't work. Story 43. Someone without close friends. I have mild autism and no interest in friendship. It's just how I've always been. I believe I still have other redeeming qualities. Story 44. Not really a big red flag, but I've heard people say that it's suspicious to put your phone on the table face down, as if they are hiding something. In reality, the screen creates a glare that distracts me. If I see the back of the phone, I know which one is mine. Story 45. Texting to update where you are. My husband texts me when he arrives at work safely. For some reason, his coworkers think it is creepy and controlling, but he tells them, she doesn't do it out of control. She just wants to know I made it here safely. It's an hour commute in the middle of nowhere. What's the harm in knowing I'm safe? If I get into an accident on the way here, she'll know to call the police and help me. Story 46. Doesn't have much of a social life. I think it's a yellow flag and something to keep in mind. However, if the person is just reclusive and has close friends they regularly interact with, then I won't fault them for not going out often. Making friends is hard as an adult. Story 47. When someone says they still live with their mother, I am okay with that. Maybe she makes delicious lasagna and does their laundry. It is not a red flag. That is a life hack. Story 48. If they wanted to, they would. No, that's just not true. There might just be a lot going on. It's hard to know. I'm autistic and I go no contact when I get too overwhelmed with life in general. I've gotten better at communicating. Before, I would just disappear for weeks on end. If you're uncertain, just ask. I might be very embarrassed to tell you, but I'll appreciate you for checking in with me instead of assuming the worst. Story 49. Not wanting a partner to wear skimpy clothing in public is a reasonable preference, and I don't think it's a red flag to want a partner who dresses appropriately. That being said, I am not referring to wanting to control your partner's clothing choices. Controlling behavior is wrong. Story 50. Being excited to talk to people while not wanting to engage with them can create a unique dynamic, especially when they are often trying to date each other. Story 51. I see a lot of attention regarding mothers snuggling with their adult sons. I have an 18-year-old son, and if he wants to crawl onto the bed to spend time with me or get close on the couch, I'm completely supportive. The same goes for his older sister. I am technically a stepmother, but I have invested a lot of effort to bond our family, and we're quite affectionate. It's not uncommon for their father, myself, and the two of them to share the couch when we're all together. My father, grandmother, and I had a similar dynamic. I would give anything to take a nap with them again. The biggest concern in that situation is the couch. We can barely all fit anymore. Story 52. Love bombing is a term I hear a lot and often used incorrectly. Sometimes, someone is just genuinely excited about their feelings and experiences them strongly. Yes, there are abusive individuals who do engage in love bombing. I am not denying that. However, I've met people who claimed they were being love bombed when the person was simply checking in with various messages like, "How are you? How was your day?" Or "Good morning." This is completely fine if you aren't feeling it, but that is not love bombing. Story 53. Not driving or owning a car. I grew up with very little money, and my parents had 5 other children. They had to work, so there was hardly time or money for lessons. I have also been in several car accidents and have attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder. I wouldn't feel safe driving. Cars are also expensive. I wish public transportation was more widespread in the United States. Story 54. Living with their parents in their 20s is not always a red flag. In this economy, it can indicate financial wisdom or a commitment to supporting family. Context matters more than cliches. Story 55. Being friendly with an ex can be an issue, but it is not inherently a bad thing. It depends on the specific situation. Story 56. My boyfriend is not taking me home. Friends have told me it's a red flag that I went home by myself while my boyfriend continued spending time with our friends. However, I get tired easily and have a low social battery. I chose not to stay out, but I don't see why my boyfriend can't. It just seems unnecessary to make him take me home only to go back out. Story 57. People who are still friends with their exes do not concern me. It's normal to maintain contact with someone after a relationship ends. It shows human emotion and maturity. Additionally, having friends of the opposite sex can make them even more attractive. Story 58. I know it's only seen as a warning sign in certain groups, but gaming is a topic of discussion. My wife introduced me to Mass Effect, and now I absolutely love the series, including Andromeda. It's more about how much of their life is put on the back burner for their games that determines whether it's a warning sign. If the house is filthy and people, including pets and children, aren't being properly cared for because someone won't get off the game, that's a warning sign. However, if the house is clean, or at least not unpleasant to look at, and living beings are taken care of while they game in their free time, that's a positive sign. Story 59. Not replying immediately. I have had two acquaintances who would get upset when I didn't respond quickly. One would continuously message me to the point of feeling overwhelmed and then act as if I disliked them. The other would ask where I went and express sadness about my lack of response, also messaging me frequently. The application I used to communicate with them often had issues where new messages wouldn't appear in my notifications, despite having notifications enabled for them. I blocked both of them for various reasons, one of which included the excessive messaging. My actual friends do not mind if I don't reply right away. Story 60. Insecurity. The most toxic individuals I know often exhibit high levels of confidence. While truly confident people are very rare, many pretend to be confident because they realize that most people will not engage with them otherwise. On the other hand, almost every insecure person I know is easy to get along with. If you simply refrain from laughing at their pain, as so many people tend to do, they won't cause you problems. Unfortunately, this understanding seems overwhelming for many, which is why I have had numerous friends over the years tell me I am a great person. In reality, the only difference between me and others is that I do not mock them for their issues. Story 61. Emotional individuals. I would much prefer someone who can feel their emotions, empathize, and communicate rather than a person who refuses to express vulnerability and resorts to aggression. I would choose crying every time. Story 62. People may not want a dinner date or something extravagant for the first date. I see many people upset about someone wanting to go on a coffee date. If that's a firm requirement for you, then that's fair enough, but it shouldn't be considered a red flag. A coffee date is a perfect way to gauge if the other person shares your interests without investing a lot of time or energy. While I understand that most people want to feel like the other person is making an effort to show up for them, it can be challenging if you haven't met before. I disliked sitting through entire dinners when I sensed right after the first few sips of a drink that I wasn't compatible with the person across from me. A coffee date or a walking date allows you both to see if you feel comfortable in each other's presence enough to plan something nice for a second date. I believe we are so focused on the idea of romance that we fail to see what truly matters. Romance is found in the little things: getting your chair, opening doors, and asking the right questions. You don't need an expensive meal to notice these gestures. Story 63. I do not have any close friends. I am autistic and can be a great partner for the right person, as demonstrated by my marriage. However, I do not have a friend group or a best friend. It is difficult for me to make and maintain friendships, and I wish it were easier. Story 64. A lot of my social circle consists of struggling individuals who did not establish stable lives after high school, even though they are now in their late 30s and early 40s. According to many of them, a major warning sign is driving a 10-year-old car. They claim it indicates that someone is financially unstable. This judgment comes from people who still live with their parents but have car payments of $1,200 per month. I have always believed that purchasing a car, whether new or used, and driving it until there is a reason not to is a sound financial decision. I am still driving my 2013 Accord, which has 200,000 miles. I bought it new. Story 65. Apparently, it is a red flag for your partner to have friends of the opposite sex. I think it is a green flag. My partner has many female friends, likely an even split between male and female friends, and they are all wonderful. The fact that he can respect, admire, and enjoy the company of women without any ulterior motive or expectation is a positive sign. Individuals who believe they cannot be just friends with the opposite sex are concerning, in my opinion. I have encountered men who do not wish to be friends with women because, if they become close, it is only with the intent of sex or dating. It is dehumanizing. Story 66. Having borderline personality disorder. The fact that I have it is not a red flag. Being willful about my skills, therapy, and meditation practices, and allowing this to disrupt my life and the lives of those affected by my actions is a red flag. Thank you. Story 67. There is no point in entering a relationship with someone who does not take their health seriously. However, if someone has a chronic but manageable health issue and has managed it well over the years, then I do not consider it a red flag. Examples include diabetes, thyroid issues, mild epilepsy, single kidney, polycystic ovarian syndrome. Story 68. Getting angry sometimes is normal. While there are points where anger issues can become a concern, anger itself is a human emotion. Expecting someone to maintain perfect control over it at all times is unrealistic. Story 69. Most red flags. Honestly, everyone treats each one like it is some kind of death knell. It is why people are so lonely. We do not examine ourselves nearly enough to see that we are pretty much all a series of walking red flags. It is about finding the person, or people if you prefer, whose flags you do not mind. One person's oh no moment is not the same as another's, and understanding that, along with being able to self-examine, will lead people to be a lot more tolerant and understanding toward each other. Especially in a relationship, it is why the top piece of advice is always to break up instead of talk to the person. Story 70. Opening the door for women and being kind and polite to other women is important. I would be upset if my boyfriend or husband did not do these things. That indicates a red flag. Story 71. I am an atheist, and people mentioning their religion is not an issue for me unless they mention it constantly or use it to deride others. If a person has a religious dietary requirement, I am happy to accommodate it where I can. Story 72. I only have Facebook to keep in touch with 2 family members, and the last time I posted was in 2023. I have YouTube and Reddit, but otherwise I am pretty much a ghost online, and that is perfectly fine with me. Story 73. It's very specific to the situation, but living with their parents. Many of my friends are caregivers for their parents, some due to age, others due to health issues, and some just because finding any affordable care is next to impossible. Then there are those who are employed, but their pay isn't keeping up with the cost of living. Others have been laid off from good jobs due to cost-cutting efforts and are trying to scrape by on a low salary, while the companies they're interviewing for are unreliable at best and frustrating at worst. Story 74. I have been turned down due to a lack of social media presence and for having 2 phones. The second phone is for work, but the assumption is that I am trying to cheat on a current significant other. Story 75. A single issue or event can lead to misplaced conclusions in relationship advice. Many assume a rule based on a single instance of bad behavior and sound the alarm with comments like, "Run. Red flag." The reality is that we all have bad days and some triggers that affect us more than others. When we started dating, my girlfriend was very jealous and would get upset if I spent time with another girl. By hanging out, I mean taking classes together and commuting on the metro to and from college. Now, after a couple of decades, if I'm late, I can jokingly say, "Oh, no big deal. I was with my lover," though there is no lover. Recently, she even encouraged me to reconnect with a female coworker with whom I used to get drinks. People change. Nobody is perfect. Everyone has their warning signs, especially when they are younger. The important thing is to be willing to change for the better. Story 76. Lack of prior relationship experience. I am my boyfriend's first relationship, and he is the best person I have dated. Story 77. Being bad with money. My best friend struggles with finances. However, she is an amazing person. She always repays her debts, sometimes very late, but she does repay them. She works a second job just to spend surprise money on unnecessary luxuries. Despite this, she is a great human being. Story 78. When people prioritize themselves in a relationship, I believe everyone should prioritize themselves first, with their partner as a close second. Story 79. Gamers. I'm a middle school teacher, so coming home to a self-contained and quiet man is all I ask for some days. I don't want to go to a noisy bar, and I don't want to pretend to be pleasant for company. While I do seek deeper connections in a relationship on those bad days, gamers are a welcome comfort. Story 80. People who don't look for warning signs often exhibit a different perspective. Conversely, I consider individuals who focus excessively on these warning signs to be a warning sign themselves. If you constantly search for faults in others, you will always discover faults. This mindset can lead to unhappiness. Story 81. Not having social media is viewed differently by many people. Some consider it suspicious or creepy, while others see it as a positive sign. Personally, I appreciate it. It reflects a connection to real life instead of projecting an idealized image that has no bearing on reality. It means not spending countless hours with one's face buried in a phone, no vanity selfies, no lifestyle photos, and no desire to follow others. I admire that quality in a person. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.